I always tell people swimrun is an adventure, and you get to do it with a friend or a family member, and it's very unique. And I mean, that's why I love it.
Welcome to the Low Tide Boyz, a Swimrun Podcast. I'm Chip.
And I'm Chris, and this is episode 65 of the show. In this week's episode, we chat with the race director of Swimrun Lake James, Kristen Jeno. This year's race is coming up on April 24th, and we have a lot to share. We have the origin story for the race, and also a mini course preview for everyone who might be racing that for the first time.
Or excited for the first U.S. regularly scheduled programming of this swimrun season.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Anyway, more on the interview later in the show.
Now on to shoutouts. So we have a really cool major shoutout this week from our friends G Flow and Tobias of Team Max Mockermann, who, if it sounds familiar, well, you're right. They were on episode 57 of the podcast and featured in our Partners Month in February. They sent us a custom Low Tide Boyz blanket for the winter holiday, some people call Christmas. They did actually ship it before December. It just actually took 3 months to get here. But regardless, we really appreciate it, and we're super stoked from the kind gift from Germany. And we're full of gratitude, and thank you for the effort on that.
And we will be putting it to good use. Now, that doesn't mean that Chipper and I will be snuggling on that, because of COVID.
But it doesn't mean we won't not be.
Maybe once we're vaccinated. But we have a potentially forthcoming studio.
Oh.
Low Tide Boyz studio.
Prestige Worldwide
studio. So if that happens, that item will be featured prominently in the corner.
Now on to this week's Feats of Endurance.
Yeah, so this week's award, we did give an award last week, so we're just kind of doubling up. Stirling and Lolo of Team Run for Tacos. They've been fans of the show since the start. They were training for their first swim run last year. That got kind of pushed over to this year. But they held a fundraising event a few weeks ago on Strava. And, it was a pretty cool fundraiser. And we're just so happy that they're doing the work. You know?
Way to go. We see you. We see you, Stirling, and Lolo of Team Run for Tacos did a little backyard. Well, not backyard, but DIY Ironman 7.3 Ironman. So kudos.
Yeah. So if you have no idea what we're talking about, you can join us on Strava to cheer on your fellow swim runners as they train all over the world. And you can get free stickers and other cool stuff.
Totally. Now, on to This Week in Swimrun, presented by RaceID.com. We have a couple of updates to share this week. So it looks like all the swim running events in Portugal are back. So Swimrun Portugal, check out our interview with race director Bruno Safara on episode 35. They recently announced that Tamega Swimrun, which is powered by Head Swimming, is happening. It's on. It's gonna happen.
Yep.
Be there. So the race is scheduled for June 6th and offers 2 different distance options. Registration is open now on RaceID.com. And more of a bummer, the Anjou Swimrun in August, France, announced they are postponing their 2021 event to 2022. Cue the sad trombone on that one.
Yeah.
They will be emailing all registered participants with their defer and refund options there. So the premiere of All the Way, The Making of Swimrun Champions, was a resounding success last week. It was on the interwebs with Otelo and Carl hosting. So anyone interested in seeing the film has until April 5th to go watch it for free at alltheway.se. Again, alltheway.se. Links to all this goodies in the show notes. In related news, we are working on hosting our own encore premiere for U.S. swim runners. So stay tuned for that. We'll be sharing news about that as soon as we have dates and special guests confirmed.
Yeah. Wink, wink. Special guest.
Wink, wink. Special guest. Well, that's it for this week. Feel free to rip us off an email to tip us off of any events or swimmer news that you'd like us to cover on the show. Now, for the updates.
Yeah, so we have a major update to share, and I think we use
a flooring.
Yeah, I think we use Super Stoked way too often, but we really, really mean it this time. With the help of some generous donations, and we're looking at you, Trista and Lori, we've managed to raise enough funds to sponsor a second young woman to attend a Wild Swimrun camp as part of their Wild Youth initiative. So we love everything that Wild Swimrun is about, and we're so happy to play a very small part in helping introduce the sport to more women. If you want to learn more about Wild Swimrun, check out our interview with co-founders Mia and Fanny on way back in episode 10 of the podcast. And yeah, I think we should just keep the fundraiser going. You know,
concur.
Yeah, it was actually around this time last year that we
Kicked it
fundraised for the. Yeah, we either fundraised or we made it. Anyway, it was good.
If you're interested in how to donate, there's a big Wild Swimrun button right on our thing and a donate button there, and those funds go directly to them.
Right on our homepage.
Yep,
lowtideboyz.com. And as another update, the new Low Tide Boyz hats are here, and all pre-orders have been mailed out. Mm-hmm. So, check your mail for that. And you can head over to our store to order one if you're feeling some FOMO. We still have some in stock, and you can use the code NEWLID, all one word, NEWLID, to save $10 off any order of $50 or more. So
get a hat and a shirt, a couple hats, whatever you want.
Yeah, 50 stickers, whatever.
Yeah, get 50 stickers. And we're still throwing in the super stoked on Swimrun stickers with every hat purchase now. So thank you for the support on those.
Yeah.
Go get one. They're looking rad. Now on to this week's interview. So this week's interview checks off a lot of boxes on like different Low Tide Boyz show types that we do.
Yeah, say that again.
we got a chat with a trailblazing race director. We learned about the history of Swimrun Lake James there, and we also got a little bit of a mini course preview before the sold-out race happening later this month on April 24th. It was great to connect with Kristen and chat with her about all these topics before they kicked off the official 2021 U.S. Swimrun race calendar. In this interview, we discussed her athletic background and her discovery of swimrun. Just a little side note, her very first swimrun ever was the Attila World Championship.
Yeah.
Let's just...
For that reason alone, listen to this interview.
You should just listen just from that reason alone. So we chatted about her background as a race director in various different multi-sport events and how she made it over to swimrun and how she developed the concept to host a swimrun in Lake James, North Carolina. We also got a bird's eye view of this year's race course from her and discussed what the future holds for swim running.
Yeah, this is a good one.
Packed.
This was it was pretty cool. I mean, Lake James was already on our list, but
yeah,
it's still on there. I mean, it didn't do anything to change the fact that we want to race.
Position maintains.
Yeah,
on bucket list. I think we really had it off with her too. Like I even heard very early on she used the word stoked, and I knew it was going to be a good time after that. So no doubt you'll enjoy this one with Kristen Jeno, Swimrun Lake James.
Super stoked.
Really mean it this time.
Kristen Jeno. She's the race director of Swimrun Lake James. Welcome to the show, Kristen.
Oh man, guys, thanks for having me. I'm excited. I was waiting for this day.
So are we.
We were too.
Oh, fantastic! I'm glad the feeling's mutual.
So we want to cover a lot of stuff about this race. It's the first merit race in the U.S. This year. But before that, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of how you found Swimrun and how you became an RD?
All right, so Swimrun started for me in 2015. So I read this article about Otelo, and my friend Jenny, who I thought was equally as crazy as myself, I was like, hey, we both love swimming and running. We should apply for the World Championships. Oddly enough, we got in, which was crazy because that year, word of mouth said, there's 700 teams that apply, and certain teams already get a spot, and I don't even know how many spots were available for application, and we got in. So our very first ever swimrun race was Otelo in 2015. Literally ever. So yeah, we kind of just jumped right in. And but I know she's like a ride or die kind of girl, so I knew that she was a perfect teammate, and loved to travel, and never had been to Sweden. So I was like, man, we're really just kind of checking a lot of boxes with this trip and this was adventure. So
Love it.
We flew out. Yeah, we flew out there. We literally just wanted to finish the race. And we did just that, but that literally, I was like, this is the best sport in the whole wide world. Like, I'm not really sure how it took me this long to find it, and have really been hooked ever since. And I really wasn't sure how to bring it to the States, but eventually, obviously, it's in the States now. But did a couple other races. Casco Bay was the first one in the States, and we did that. Then they started kind of trickling in. Then it was Swimrun North Carolina, and then it took us a couple years to make Lake James, because we're from Wilmington, and Lake James is 6 hours away. So it was kind of a trip to get up there and scout out the area. But 2 years later, we were able to hold the event and it be pretty successful for the first year.
Why did you choose Lake James? Had you vacation there and kind of like, oh, this would be a sick place to have a swim run, or what was it?
Well, it's funny. My partner, he unfortunately is not my partner this year anymore, because he took I call it a big boy job. But Tony from Georgia is actually my race partner now. But Brian and I, back when we were looking for Lake James, we literally pulled up Google Earth. And we were like, man, where's the sick place to hold an event? And we just started literally looking on Google Earth in North Carolina that looked like the lake looked good, meaning like there were some islands. It looked beautiful. It was easy to get to. And we stumbled upon Lake James. It was right off 40. So people could fly to Asheville. People could fly to Charlotte. You can easily get there. So we were like, man, let's just take a trip up to Lake James and check this place out, because neither one of us had been there. We showed up and we were like, holy crap, this place is perfect. And I feel like we kind of got lucky, because it was like the first time we went there and the first place we really wanted to do it, and it was perfect. So, I mean, the park staff they're amazing. The people there are amazing. The lake is beautiful. The terrain is beautiful. It's hard enough, but easy enough where it's not like insanely difficult, but there's definitely some challenges. And I mean, honestly, we just got super lucky with the location, and it really is a perfect place for a swim run event.
That's awesome that your Google Map exploration has paid off. And funny enough, Chris and I on our Instagram account, we do all those memes, and Chris usually creates most of them, but I'll find sometimes inspirational photos. And just this morning there was a nice aerial photo that I just found on a totally unrelated, not a swim run thing at all. It just had a ton of islands, and I was like, oh my gosh, this would be like the swim run heaven right here. There's Mecca. Like 50 islands. And so I think once you kind of get the swim run bug, you start looking at nature in a different capacity, which I think wasn't the first thought that we thought that swim run was going to do for us, but it's definitely kind of changed our perspective about when you're outside. You just are starting to view things a different way about, hey, here's a body of water. It doesn't mean it's the end of the line for me.
Right, exactly.
It's actually just a nice bridge, essentially.
Yeah, and if you're a chipper, it really doesn't matter what kind of body of water. He wants to just jump in it. I'm like, I don't know. That's all you. It's covered in algae, but go for
and
it.
I mean, that's the thing. Like Lake James has when I saw that Lake James had islands, I was like, I don't even care. This is we'll make this work. So yeah, it's crazy that's literally how we found it. But that's how we stumbled upon it. And like, I literally call it the hidden gem of North Carolina, because I've been to a lot of places around the US, and I mean, I get super stoked to go out there anytime I can. So
awesome.
So what, from discovering it to coming up with your course, like how much scouting did you do? How did you kind of come up with this?
How many 6-hour drives did you make?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man. The first couple of years we probably made 4 a year. Like I said, the park superintendent and park rangers were like really, really, really helpful, because they kind of showed us the ins and outs in terms of like fire roads, dirt roads. I mean, like most
nice.
of the course is not on, like, if you were just to roll up into Lake James, like, and just go there as just, we'll call it like a normal person, like, you're going to just go hike the trails that are marked. But the rangers showed us like all the behind the scenes of the whole park, and we were like, we're using this. Like, we've got to figure out a way to connect this fire road to Long Arm, and then we can get out to the islands. And I mean, we spent so many hours just trying to, like, literally looking at a map and saying, how can we make these points connect? We did it. And I mean, we did it. I mean, that's, you know, like, we did, there's some areas where we're like, hey, man, how do we get to this point? And so we were just like, all right, let's just go into the woods and figure out how we're going to get to one of the long swims. And there's some bushwhacking, and there was some tree cutting and some macheting, and, you know, just kind of making our own path. Because some of the places oh yeah, machete for sure. Nice. Oh yeah, and chainsaw, the whole works. But I mean, there's places that, like, literally we only go, like, the park rangers and other people don't go. It's kind of like our area, like Swimrun. This is that, like that part of Lake James is ours because nobody else really goes there.
It's in the true spirit.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. And that's why, like, I love it. I mean, I was like, this is Swimrun. And I mean, that's how I was exposed in Sweden. And I was just like, we're not going to hold back here in the States.
I mean, I think it has to be, I mean, I would say, like, your perspective on what makes a good swimrun course, it's probably so ridiculously calibrated when you're like baptism into swimrun is like the original race.
Yeah, your benchmark is the world
like
championship.
The original race.
That's right.
The original event ever, right? And then you bring that back, and then you're like, all right, we have a course. Let's just do this. Like how did that happen in terms of deciding that's like, all right, let's just become race directors and make this thing a real thing?
Well, I was a race director before this. So I do an open water swim here, and I've been doing it for 10 years. And then I help my buddy put on, like, you know, trail races and marathons. Mm-hmm. So Lake James wasn't necessarily the first race I directed. And I'm also, like, a contract worker for Ironman. So in terms of putting events on, I've kind of had that experience under my belt, just with other events. You know, this one's just a little bit more complex. But also, like, not really, because it's Swimrun, and I'm just kind of like, man, here's the course, you follow it-ish. It's kind of this long-ish, you know. Mm-hmm. Some of the other races that I direct, you know, it's a little bit more structured, if you want to call it that, where, like, it's 26.2, or this is 3.5 miles.
More prescriptive, I guess. It's just more exact.
Yeah,
because, you know, if the aid station isn't exactly where it's supposed to be, you know, people are going to start freaking out, you know.
Yeah. So, like, in terms of race directing, like I said, I've been doing that for many years before this. This was just the first swim run that I directed, and I just wanted to bring the sport to the U.S. because I loved it, and it was something completely different than what we've ever been really exposed to or used to in that manner, where it's like I always tell people swimrun is an adventure, you know, and you get to do it with a friend or a family member, and it's very unique. And I mean, that's why I love it.
That's the same. Everyone, your experience that you shared about going to the World Championship and that being your first one, and you kind of immediately falling in love. It's interesting to hear that on the biggest scale of courses or the toughest challenge in a swim run, you still fell in love with it as quickly as someone who's doing, you know, your kind of local, like, little 10K swim run that's just a kind of a beginner thing, which is, I think, what makes the sport and people who are into swim run so, I don't know. We say we're stoked on it all the time, but I guess that's becoming a push for us.
Yeah. Well, it's like I said, it's freeing. Like, it's, you know, at least with my race or even the World Championships, where I mean, we got lost several times just because we were like, this is amazing, you know, and you all of a sudden you lose track of a streamer. You're just in the front of someone's yard. You're just like, this doesn't seem right, you know. But the thing is like, you figure it out. Like, it's not like someone's holding your hand being like, oh, no, you got to go this way. You're just like, crap. all right, I guess we got to backtrack a little bit and then find out where we're going and then assume that we're going to get where we need to go at some point. But whatever, it's an adventure. So we're just going to keep rolling with it.
Yeah.
And like, I like that. Like that to me is fun, you know?
So so this race is awesome. Do you think that can you give us sort of like a walkthrough? Let's just say like the long course for folks that might be doing this for the first time, of kind of like, you know, how does the course flow?
Yeah. So the first year, just to kind of give you a little bit of background, we initially wanted to start at this farm. We were like, man, if we could start at this farm, it would be sick. It's open field. You know, we could hold the event inside this barn.
Oh.
And long story short, they were like, no, this was bought by Fontaflora. It's going to be under construction. You know, you're going to have to start at the park. So the first year we actually started inside the park and finished inside the park. But later on, we found out that Fontaflora was a brewery. And I was like, are you kidding me? This is going to be amazing.
You
so
have to do that.
The second year, the brewery was completed. So now we start and finish at not only a barn, but a brewery. And I was like, it just keeps getting better.
It sells itself. This race sells itself.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And Fontaflora is like, they're awesome. They're so great to work with. But anyways, back to the course. So we start and finish at Fontaflora, and both the long course and short course, but I'll just stick to the long course because the short course is in the long course. But everybody starts out with a run, which leaves from the brewery, and then you head immediately into the park. And you do the first, I'd say 4 swims, relatively pretty quick, and it kind of gets people feeling really good because you're not in the water too terribly long before you kind of start your longer run. And most of the beginning runs are on marked trails. So there's not a lot of super bushwhacking quite yet, but you kind of get to see a lot of like the Patty's Creek area, where if you were to drive into the park, you're going to kind of see that. I'd say it's pretty spectator friendly the first little bit, but as soon as you kind of get out of the last swim, which is swim 4, and you start on your longer run, then it becomes like, okay, cool. Now it's Swimrun Lake James, because you go on to like a gravel road, and then you hit the fire roads, and you're on the fire roads for a long time until you hit a long arm, which if you look at a map, you can kind of just see long arm just like this huge piece of land, like a peninsula that kind of sticks out. And you go down a gravel road, and then you kind of go off onto another, they call it a fire road, but like that's the section where like only we go. So there's a lot of like bushwhacking back there. And then it becomes a swimmer's race after the long run, because this is at least every time I've done it, this is where I'm kind of like, oh, all right, here we go. Like, you've got swim 5, which is one of the longest swims. And then the islands are small islands. So you don't necessarily get to warm up as much as you want to before you're like right back in the water. And you hit 3 islands, and then you get to run like a little bit, I'd say like just shy of 2 miles. And then you've got a couple short swims, and then you run another couple miles, and then you've got the last swim, long swim. And I just remember every time I get to the last long swim, I'm just like, all right, here we go. Let's do this. And Brian, my old partner, I deemed that Brian swim because that's where he always fell apart at. And he was like, I'm done. I don't know why I'm doing this. Why did we come up with this course? You know, you go through the whole team dynamic where you're like, man, you know, you're going to be all right. Just let's get in the water. Let's hammer this out. You know, we'll call this Brian swim. And then it takes you to what we call Half Mile Island, which is just like it used to be like an old logging island, because most of those islands out there are owned by Duke Energy. And then once you get after that last long swim and you get to Half Mile Island, like you're like, okay, cool, I can do this now. It is definitely a roller coaster of emotions in this race. Once you get, like I said, back kind of towards Patty's Creek, you'll essentially make your way back up to Fontaflora. So you know, the long course is 14, a little like almost 15 miles. It really just depends on how you run it. and then the swim is just shy of, it's over 3.5. It's under 4. So again, like it depends on how you swim it. I mean, some of the longer swims, like it can get pretty windy out at Lake James. So like you can get blown around a bit. So, yeah. So it just depends on how it all pans out for the teams. But it's a fun course.
One thing I love about the course, speaking about fun, is, like you said, once you're on Long Arm, just looking at the map, there's all these little tiny islands. So it's almost like a mini transition where it doesn't look like, from the map, doesn't look like you're running more than quarter of a mile before you're back in the water. It just looks like a lot of fun.
Oh yeah. Oh no, it's crazy. I took Tony and one of his buddies out there in January, and I was like, all right, we're about to go on Long Arm. And I remember getting all the way down to like the last campsite, and he was just like, dude, this Long Arm is long. And I was like, yeah, buddy, that's why they call it Long Arm, because as soon as you turn down the gravel road, like you're on the gravel road for like 10 minutes until you get all the way to the, like pretty much down to where you see like Run 8, Run 9. So like it's a long peninsula. So that when we looked at a map, like I said, I was like, we need to get out there. So it's much longer than you think.
It sounds like the perfect swim run course. You kind of ease into it a little bit, and then then it gets serious.
Then it starts destroying you.
Oh yeah.
Then it starts breaking you, and
test
perfect day.
Test your metal.
Yeah, I say like you get really hot and super comfortable on the long run, and then you get to feel the wrath of what I call the real swim run, where you just hit the cold waters and get cold. And people were always like, oh man, it's so cold. And I was like, you have no idea. Go to Sweden.
Yeah.
That's cold. So it goes back to being tainted. That was my first race. So I really have I have sympathy, but I'm just like, you'll be fine.
Yeah, for sure.
So
I mean, it's amazing what you can overcome, especially when you have a partner.
Oh yeah.
And a
for sure.
This race is also an Attila merit race, which is super cool. How did that happen? Did you reach out to them, or did they reach out to you? How'd that work?
Yeah, so I reached out to them, and I actually went back to Europe, Europe is Europe, but I went back and did Rockman, and then I had to make a pit stop, of course, in Sweden, and actually set up a meeting. Yeah, I set up with a meeting with Michael and kind of picked his brain a little bit and talked about Lake James and how, I really would love it to be a merit race, and, of course it's branding for him. And I said, this is the course, this is the lowdown on the area. It's true to the sport of swim run. And I mean, it pretty much was like, I was like, this is what you want. And I think, we have a lot to offer, and, you seem like a really cool guy, and I really would love for the sport to grow in the U.S. and carry the brand of Otelo and have it be a merit race, and, hopefully get more people over to the World Championships. And, just he loves the sport too, just as much as I do, and wants to see it grow. So it was very mutual feelings, and, it wasn't a terrible amount of work. It was just more like, hey, let's do this. And he was like, okay. So I was like, sweet.
Well, it's a very convincing argument. If I was convinced just in your retelling of it, I was like, yeah, of course. Like, why wouldn't you want to do that?
Yeah. So I was like, it's he kind of had to work a little bit with it, because he wanted like distances comparable to for the World Championships, and I was just like, you kind of have to be a little bit flexible, because the athletes here are a little bit more novice than the hardy Vikings over in Sweden. So I was like, if we want the sport to grow, we have to start somewhere. So there's got to be a little bit of flexibility with distances, So I was like, trust me, it's the course. Every time I get ready to go do the course, I'm always like, all right, here we go. Let's, put my big girl pants on and let's do it.
Totally. So you've been in swimrun for, I mean, now 7-something years, and you've seen kind of the first races trickle in. What kind of athletes, or has there been a change in the type of athletes that you got from year one to kind of the registrations that you're seeing now? Like, what's the makeup of the registrants, participants?
Well, I honestly think that depends on the course. So, I don't really look at this as a complaint, but I always ask people for feedback, whether it's, good, positive, constructive, whatever. And, they say Lake James is a hard course. And I was like, perfect. So, I do know that with my race specifically, like it is usually a hardy group of people that have been doing swim run for a little while, like, a couple years. And because the complaint of it being difficult, that's actually what created the short course. So I said, all right, cool. Well, I'll cut out the part where people start falling apart, which is swim 5, run 6, swim 6, all that, those smaller islands, because that's where people start kind of falling out, and create a short course, because I want to, grow the sport, not only for people that are hardy, so to say, but also people that just want to get into the sport. So, I'd say we have a pretty competitive field, and a lot of the crew that comes out there, they are Wilmington based, which is where I'm at. And, I have a solid, group of friends and followers that love swim run that I've kind of shared the sport with. So like, I've been able to help them prepare for it. But, then like you've got people like Marcus, who was out at Sweden with me. You've got Lars, you've got the people that have kind of been in the sport and gone and done some European races that kind of know the difficulty and challenging aspects of swim run. So you've kind of got that crowd, or like the adventure crowd, the ultra runners that kind of just have that mindset of like, just put it on cruise control and go no matter how hard it is. So I honestly expect this year to have a pretty good spread of novice to pretty experienced swim runners, just because I have the short course. But typically it is a pretty hardy crowd for my course, because it's not technical, but it's difficult.
Yeah. And I think that's the way that swim runs are they're just will always be like that. I don't think you can, well, that's not true. You can make a super sprint fast course, of course. But I think the people that are really drawn to swim run like it because it is the challenge and doing something totally different that you can't experience elsewhere.
Correct.
So,
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah,
absolutely. It is. I mean, it's you don't really repeat anything, in this course. So, it's always, for the most part, changing to an extent. Like there's some sections that, depending on the water level, I have to like put a rope so you got to climb out. And I'm like, hey, they'll be fine. They can use the rope.
That sounds like fun.
Oh, absolutely. I'm like, this is a great idea. May the water level be low this year.
Nice. So we're about a month, just over a month-ish out to the race. And you were mentioning before that you got some great news from the local health inspector about the status of the race, and you want to share that positive news with us?
So we Tony and I went up in January and had a meeting with the park superintendent, and she said to kind of reach out to the health department of Burke County, and I had a pretty good, I guess, template of like COVID protocols, because I've been putting on events since August of last year.
Okay.
So I kind of knew how to make it safe in terms of like, the COVID days. So with Lake James specifically, we pretty much created like a 4-page document of COVID protocols, as in like, it's actually quite easy because we're never indoors. So it's more of just like crossing your T's and dotting your I's, like making sure people spread out. And, we're giving away custom buffs to everybody. So, no face mask. Here's the Swimrun Lake James buff. So Tony and I are going to probably end up doing things like, hey, at aid stations, if you just want to have your own personal bag, you can create your own personal bag with your own nutrition and drop it we'll get it to the aid station, kind of like a special needs bags for Ironman races. Okay. So that a lot of people kind of want to do that. So that'll kind of eliminate, touch and grab kind of scenario at aid stations. But, everything will be individually packaged, and awesome. We're going to do a time trial start, and because there's a short and long course, the numbers in terms of total participants are split up. So they say we can only have 100 people, and that's no problem because that's essentially 50 teams for the short course, 50 teams for the long course, and we're not really even going to try for that number because I don't want to push my luck with that. But we've spread everybody out enough, because as soon as the race starts with a time trial start, like, you spread out, like you'll run into people, but you get so spread out on that course that, like, even with a staggered start and even with a time trial start, like, people are going to spread out. Aid stations will be, gloves and masks, individually packaged stuff, special needs bags, handing out buffs, hand sanitizer. I mean, Fonta Flora is on board. They're just like, awesome. They're great. We'll keep everybody outside.
Everyone gets their own beer.
In terms of food, in terms of food afterward, we're just doing food trucks, and people can go up and get food versus just having a spread of food.
You're definitely an experienced race director, and it's showing here. You got it all nailed down and laid out, ready to go. And it sounds like it's going to be a hell of a time at the on April 24th. I do see there's a wait list. Is there any slots open if people have pent up endurance needs they need to get out there in the Lake James area?
Yeah, I mean there's definitely still a few spots left. I don't know if all the teams on the wait list have taken them, and if they have, that means new people have joined the wait list in the last couple of days. But right now we're sitting probably around, I'd say 60 teams, which I think just to kind of keep the park happy and the health department happy and EMS happy and, all the outside resources. Yeah. I like a good controllable number. So, just because it's the right and smart thing to do. So, there could be a few teams that drop out or switch over or whatever, but that's definitely where we're sitting at with numbers.
Great. So if upon hearing this, if this is entering your ears right now and it sounds like something you want to do, I'd recommend strongly.
Yeah, we'll make sure we have that. We'll put that link in the show notes and all that. So
cool. So awesome.
Kristen, so I have one more question for you. We've been chatting with you for a while. It's kind of a compound question. With your experience as a race director, as an experienced swim runner, where do you see the sport kind of going in the U.S.? And I say that from two perspectives. Like, where do you think it's going, and where would you want it to go in terms of growth and participation?
Let's see. So, where the sport is going, which honestly, it's, the reason I'm kind of pausing is because everything's so COVID right now that events it's not easy to put on an event right now. And because it's kind of I feel like we're living month to month with COVID, and it's difficult. Unfortunately, I don't even know what it's going to look like a year from now in terms of what events are, because travel and stuff like that. I mean, if we took COVID out of the equation, the sport itself, I think, has a lot of potential because there's so many cool places and destinations now. In hindsight, though, because it's such a new sport, I don't think adding more events would probably be wise versus just, making the current events successful and getting those numbers up to where one of the big reasons people come to events is because of the social aspect and to hang out and have fun. And I think, with at least 50 to 100 teams at each of these events, like it's kind of like get the events that are out there successful and rolling, and then we can add more events. And, I've talked about this with Herbert and Lars about maybe even potentially having like a US championship where, we kind of create our own, we kind of did this, 2 years ago, where we create our own point scale or our own standards or our own scale where like these teams get to go to the championships and, but
get the golden bib and stuff.
I think it'd be really cool to have like a US championship, or have like it rotate, meaning like 1 year Lake James is the championship, 1 year San Juan's the championship, 1 year North Carolina's the championship, where we don't necessarily have to create a new course. We just move the championships and, just again, like help each other and grow the events that we have. I think that would be the smart thing to do, given the current status of events in general. And the fact that like this is happening, like who knows what's going to happen this year. And it's really even hard to predict what's going to happen next year. So I do think working together and growing what we have and, continuing to like spread the word and just share our passion for the sport, I think currently that might be the best thing to do before we start adding things. But, right now it's just, man, when an event can happen, that's awesome.
And let's prop it up, and that's one of the reasons that we wanted to make sure we kind of highlighted you and your race there. Is it is the first regularly scheduled programming of 2021 for the Swimrun calendar in the United States, and it's looking really positive, and we're super stoked about that. So we're cheering you on. The race is on our bucket list for sure. For sure.
Sweet. We'd love to have you guys.
Just need toddlers to hurry up and grow up just a few more years.
It's what swim runs have you done?
Yes, so we have our very first one was the California swim run, Andy Hewitt's swim run down in San Diego in 2018. Then that same year.
Wait, Catalina or one of?
Oh, it was one of Andy
Hewitt's Swimrun California.
It was like a 10K.
Okay.
12K.
And then we did Odyssey Casco Bay that year as well. And then 2019 we were family guys, and 2020 we did Catalina and Austin.
The only two swim
runs. So we're 100% batting 1,000 last year, and this year we have 5 or 6 on the books, I think, at least.
Oh, nice.
So
nice.
Yeah, it all depends. It's all very, like you mentioned.
It's all fluid.
It's all very, every day it changes. So we're just trying to do the most that we can in the safest manner that we can and stay married.
Well, when it's easy to travel international, I would highly recommend heading over to Europe and doing one. Yeah, because those are no disrespect to what we do here in the States, but I've done Rockman and Otelo, and
those are two of the hardest races in the world.
Yeah, of any sport.
Yeah, of anything.
Rockman is actually harder than Otelo in my book.
I'm not surprised.
It's short. It's shorter and took us the same amount of time.
Yeah, we chatted with Thor last year, and he's a little bit twisted up, I think. But he's got a little bit of like an evil thing going on.
Man,
he's a little
those Scandinavians, man. I was gonna say they gave me the mentality of Swimrun. They've tainted my view, so that's they're a different breed over there. That's for sure.
Awesome. Well, Kristen, we really appreciate you coming on and sharing about yourself, your entry into Swimrun, and all about Swimrun Lake James, which is happening on April 24th this year, 2021. So we're really excited about that. So if you're looking for something to do, highly recommend it. It's an Otelo merit race, so you can earn points if you do want to qualify for that world championship in Stockholm. But yeah, all around seems like a hell of a race, and the true spirit of Swimrun from a woman whose first swim run was
The grittiest. Yeah.
The grittiest, the hardest one there
So
is.
great. So great.
Major kudos to you, Kristen.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate the time, guys, and the chance to be on your podcast and show.
Awesome. Well, we look
you.
forward to meeting you in person at some point. But good luck with the race, and we'll be cheering you on. We'll shout it out a few more times.
Oh, for sure.
Awesome. Well, yeah. Well, thanks again, guys. It's been fun.
Cheers.
All right, take care.
Thank you for listening to the Low Tide Boyz, a Swimrun podcast. Make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast and leave a review on iTunes if you're so inclined.
You can also sign up for a newsletter at lowtideboyz.com. That's boys with a Z. And check out our meme page at The Low Tide Boyz on Instagram. If you have any questions or suggestions for the show, drop us an email at lowtideboyz@gmail.com.
We'd like to thank Writing Easy Records for our show music, and of course our wives for their support and tolerance of our swimrun activities, hobbies, and other bullshit we do.
Finally, you can support our efforts on Patreon. Until next time, get out there and go for a swim.
And then a run.
And then another swim.
Then another run.
And then another swim.
And then run to the finish line. And just keep going until you're done.
Yes, or
until
run
you
to
cross the finish line.
or run to the car.
Or run to your car.
Somewhere. Just keep running. Peace.